Hello and welcome to the first episode of YGAMES. I'm your host MX-256, but you can call me Dash. This show will focus on issues in the entertainment industry that I believe need discussing. A lot of people out there may be curious about why things are the way they are in this digital world we now live in, and how it affects us. At the moment, this show will focus on three categories: video games, movies, and cartoons. As you can tell from the title, this episode will be about video games. Alright, let's begin. For many of us, video games have been around our whole lives, although when compared to most other forms of media, video games have been widespread for just a few decades, but underwent many changes. To try and categorize these changes and major leaps in technology, these eras are referred to as generations. We are now currently in the 8th generation. The Nintendo Wii U being the first gaming console of this generation, which would soon be followed by Microsoft's Xbox One and Sony's PlayStation 4. But this really only applies to dedicated gaming systems as opposed to portable devices and of course computers in general. At the time of me uploading this video, the PS4 and the Xbox One have not yet been released to the public. But for some reason, a lot of people are skeptical of these supposedly powerful systems. Most of the hate of these systems, and yes, even hate on the PS4, is obviously coming from some PC enthusiasts. There's a lot of criticism going around that states that the PS4 will not be nearly as powerful as a gaming PC, but there is a misconception here. A lot of people are comparing numbers, and that's about it, but fail to look back on console successes in our gaming history. But before we dive into this dangerous territory, I'd like to make this clear. The PC is more powerful than any console on the face of the earth, and it will always be more powerful, assuming you have the money to build a powerful enough PC. Especially when it comes to the upcoming competition. Let's talk about this competition that we call the 8th gen game consoles. We will be using the PS4 as an example. Now, I said earlier that some gamers are saying that the PS4 is much weaker than a good gaming PC. However, this is actually false. It's not just an issue of which one is more powerful, but rather which platform is more efficient in its use of its hardware. Let me explain. In order to run a game, a PC is required to also run an operating system. But a PC's operating system, also known as an OS, is designed to do anything and everything, and as a result, it is heavy on resources. PCs also have to run a mountain of other things. It has to run drivers, APIs, and in many cases, other additional softwares like Steam and Origin. All of these and much more, such as unrelated apps that run in the background, like antivirus programs, software that comes with drivers, and other stuff that may be sitting in the background that, although may be doing nothing, still takes up memory. The list goes on, but all of these put a heavy burden on a PC. All of these things take up RAM, CPU, and yes, even GPU resources, which means there isn't much left for games to use. The only solution? Build an even more powerful PC to make up for the loss in performance and resources. So, why does the PC have to deal with all of these things? There are many reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is compatibility. PCs are extremely diverse, with all different kinds of hardware that come from all different kinds of manufacturers. As a result, incompatibility is a big issue. This is why drivers and APIs exist. Drivers are designed to translate software data into something that the hardware can understand, and APIs are external programs that is a standard that game developers have to conform to. As a result, an API has to run in conjunction with the game at all times. Consoles, however, do not have this problem. Every Xbox 360 is the same. Even the 360S, which uses more advanced hardware than the original FAT360, has been underclocked in order to simulate the original console's hardware in order to maintain that compatibility. So, compatibility isn't an issue, which means all of that stuff that the PC has to worry about is almost non-existent for a console. In fact, for a very long time, consoles only used a BIOS for booting, and that's it. It's only recently that modern consoles have started using operating systems. However, even these OSs are very simple in comparison to an OS for a PC. As a result, they use far less resources. In fact, they are more like an OS that you would find on a tablet or a mobile phone. Now, I am aware that the 360 and PS3 do have APIs installed on them, but these game developers can choose to bypass these APIs in order to get a performance boost in their games, which is what many of them choose to do. The advantages that a console has has been repeated throughout our gaming history, and that lies in the console's ability to do more with less. For an example, way back in 1994, the average person had a PC capable of running Doom 2, but the PlayStation, which was released in Japan also in 1994, could do so much more. Same goes for the Famicom, which is the Japanese version of the NES. It was released way back in 1983, and it took until the late 80s for PCs to be able to do console quality side-scrollers that were common on the Famicom. In fact, I remember I used to have a Pentium 4 with a 1.8 GHz processor. Oh, by the way, this is going to get a bit technical. And that machine struggled to play Need for Speed Underground at a smooth frame rate, and yet the PS2, which had inferior hardware, handled the game pretty well. Now, look, I'm not saying a PC can't do what a console can at launch. If you have the dough, you most certainly can build a monster of a machine that can rival any console. But still, a lot of people underestimate consoles. I mean, I know so many people that bought a PC back in 2005 because they were convinced that it could handle whatever the Xbox 360 could do. At the time, they were right, but as time went by, they started to realize that their $500 PC from 2005 could not handle some of the more recent games like Crysis 2, and yet the 360 could. This leads to my next point. Games look better as time goes by without the need to upgrade. Here's some examples of PS3 games. Ridge Racer from 2006 and Gran Turismo 6 slated for late 2013. Here's Uncharted from 2007 and here's The Last of Us 2013. As game developers get used to the hardware, games look better. So back to the PS4. Some people may not be very impressed at the launch titles that the PS4 has to offer, but that's the thing. Games will look better as time goes by. So now we know that consoles in general are way more efficient than the PC. But how powerful is the PS4? Again, a lot of people have been saying that the PS4 is pretty weak, but I'm not sure how true that statement is. Let's take a quick look at what we know so far. Warning, this is also going to get very technical. So many people speculate that the PS4 CPU is clocked pretty low. For those that don't know, this is the speed of the CPU we're talking here. However, if you take into account that the CPU has 8 cores as opposed to just 4, then basic math would suggest that this is the same as a CPU that has 4 cores that is clocked rather high. I also should mention that the PS4 has a 28 nanometer CPU. Some of the fastest CPUs for PCs are measured between 32 and 22. So from these numbers, we know that the CPU isn't as bad as everyone is making it out to be. As a matter of fact, it's actually pretty good. Same goes for the GPU. Sure, it may not be the fastest single GPU on the market like the GeForce GTX 680, but it ain't no slouch either. But the most important thing that I should point out is that the CPU is on the same die as the GPU, which means communication between the two processors will be much faster than what PCs have been doing in the past. And finally, we have the RAM. Sure, 8 gigs is definitely a good thing. However, that's not what I'm interested in. It's the kind of RAM that it's using. GDDR5. Even PCs don't have this kind of RAM, and this is a great benefit to the console. So why am I telling you all this techno babble? Well, I don't think the PS4, and even the Xbox One for that matter, will be inferior to the average gaming PC. But once again, I'm not saying that the PS4 will outdo the fastest PCs out there. In fact, for all we know, there may be a bottleneck that we're not aware of that may limit the PS4 in one way or another. But at the moment, things are actually looking good. All that I'm saying is, some PC fanboys can be a bit biased and ignorant at times. You know whom I'm talking about, the ones that love comparing their brand new rigs to an already 8-year-old console, the ones that focus too much on graphics and not enough on the quality of the games themselves. The point of this video is we need to put our pride away and analyze things for what they truly are. To all console fanboys, give it a rest. The PC will always be more powerful than a console. But to all PC fanboys, consoles are more efficient than PCs. This is why they have the most bang for buck. And any PC that costs $400, I'm sad to say just isn't gonna be able to compete against the PS4 and even the Xbox One. If you're gonna build a PC that is just as capable as a console, if not more, be prepared to spend. I love both consoles and PCs, and this video isn't designed to convince anyone of which platform to go for. The whole console versus PC thing is actually pretty immature. I mean, which is better, a Porsche or a Hummer? Well, that depends. Whichever one you like the most, I guess. After all, it's all about the games, isn't it?